So I'm a Christian and I love fiction, but sometimes I find it hard to read Christian fiction because, no offense, they're a little bit cringe. But I've been working and researching and trying my hardest to find some options that might be decent. So this week I'm gonna only be reading Christian fiction books until I can find one that isn't cringe at all and is good enough to be rated 5 stars on Goodreads. I started off by going to this Christian Bible bookstore. There were actually so many more options than I thought, which made choosing really hard. I read the back of 1,000 books and eventually I did find something. Okay, that was actually way harder than it should have been. I was leaning more towards a mystery book just because those are the types of books I'm more interested in. And I found this one. It's called 3 Missing Days. I have heard of Colleen Coble before, but I've never read her books, so hopefully this one is decent and not cringy. Hello, it's me from the future, and I just wanted to say that I'm not very smart. I didn't realize when picking out this book that is actually the 3rd book in a series. In my defense, it doesn't really say it anywhere on the book, but it's true. And because I didn't realize this, I went on to read the book. And I'm just gonna let you wait and see how long it takes me to actually realize that this is the 3rd book in a series, because honestly, it's just embarrassing how long it took. Okay, so I have just barely started 3 Missing Days. I wanted to say that thus far I am actually really enjoying it. I love when books start off right in the action and there's not a lot of slow build up to things. This book started off right away, super intense, and it was really fun. Hopefully this is gonna be a good one. Most of the time I like to read 2 books at once so that I can have a physical book to read and also listen to an audiobook. So I went ahead and started a second Christian fiction book, which was called The Waterkeeper. I had seen some pretty good reviews for it, so I decided to give it a try. So I'm at the gym right now. I'm about to start my next book. I'm just gonna listen to the audiobook. It's on Spotify, so I figured I would just do that. I haven't heard too much about it, but it seems like a fun suspense mystery, which is pretty much what I'm looking for with all these books. I'm gonna go work out and listen to it, and hopefully it'll be good. So today is a good day because I don't have too much to do at all, which means I can spend a lot of time reading through this book. So far, this book is kind of weird for me because the plots that are going on, I'm genuinely really interested in, but there is so much going on. Even just in the first few chapters, there's 3 different plots that I'm assuming are all eventually going to tie in together, but right now it's just 3 separate things going on and a ton of different characters that I'm having to keep up with. I think I've already said that this one is a mystery. It's about a chief detective in a small town, and thus far a tragedy has happened and she's trying to figure out what happened and why it happened. And I'm also, now that I think about it, not seeing a whole lot of Christian aspects to this book yet. I'm hoping that once that starts to come up, because I know this is a Christian fiction book, that it'll kind of fit into the story in a very normal, natural way instead of feeling really out of the blue. Back at the gym again. I'm going to be listening to this book the entire time. I'm actually pretty interested in the book at this point, so I'm excited to listen to it a lot. I'm so curious at this point to see which book actually ends up being a 5-star. Possibly one of these 2 or maybe something completely different. I am just about halfway through 3 Missing Days. This book is really confusing to me because it's in the beginning, one plot point happened and it was really interesting and I wanted to know what happened, and then that just kind of stopped or got pushed to the side, and then a new thing came up, which was kind of annoying because I really wanted to figure out what happened with the first thing. So right now it just feels very sporadic and it's just quickly jumping from one thing to the next, and so I'm a little bit annoyed with that. However, I'm gonna keep reading it. I am enjoying it somewhat, but I'm not sure if this is gonna end up being a 5-star. Around this time I was starting to not really enjoy my audiobook either. There wasn't anything terrible about it. It did have some Christian aspects to it that weren't too cringy, but I found myself just getting bored with it. At this point I kind of knew that the video wouldn't be finished after these 2 books, so I knew I needed to start researching and figuring out what my next book would be. I'm seeing so many different good looking options. The hard thing is that it's not like I can just go look up a video on any of these because no one's really talking about them. And although the synopsis sounds good, it's hard to tell if it's something I would actually like. So what kind of prompted me to do this in the beginning is that I really love reading, but I find it so hard to pick out regular good books that aren't filled with stuff I just don't want to read about. I really want to find several super good Christian fiction books that have a great story and great characters and a great writing style and actually hold up against some of the really good regular regular like secular books I read, but realistically the odds of finding that are pretty slim. So this is the size of the Christian fiction section in Barnes & Noble, which is obviously really tiny compared to the countless shelves of other regular books. So because the options are so minimal, the odds of finding a really good one are pretty slim. And because people don't talk about these books as much and they don't have nearly as many reviews, I feel like when I'm shopping for a new Christian fiction book, I'm kind of going in blindly. I'm not gonna give up yet. I'm gonna keep going. I have a few more ideas for next books, but I'm struggling a bit right now. I was getting so close to the end of this book and still hadn't realized the main reason I wasn't liking it, but pretty soon I would. Okay, so a little update on The Waterkeeper, which is the audiobook I've been listening to. This one's kind of hard for me. As far as the Christian aspect goes, I don't think it's too cringy. There's nothing I can really pinpoint that's that bad about it. I have looked up reviews on this one and a lot of people seem to really love it, and I think that's part of why I'm hesitant to say that I don't love it that much. Because again, everything about it is logically a good book. I'm just not that interested. Okay, so I'm ready for my next book. I've come to Barnes to just browse through and see what I want to read next. I think I don't want to read another mystery thriller, but I don't really have any books in mind, which might not be the best idea before going in. Fingers crossed that this next book will be a 5-star. I paced through that store for the longest time, and although I found some options, I didn't feel great about any of them. So I left empty-handed and I was starting to get a little bit stressed. So that didn't go as well as I had hoped. I honestly wasn't sure how I was gonna find a book at this point. I've been sitting here thinking about what book I could possibly read next. I've just been looking and looking and looking and I can't find anything. I went to Barnes & Noble the other day and I just couldn't find anything. So the one Christian fiction series that I've always loved, and I think the only one I've given 5 stars, is the Chronicles of Narnia series. And I was thinking back on how much I just love those books and I was almost wishing I could read them again just for this video. And then I had an idea. Although the Chronicles of Narnia are probably the biggest books made by C.S. Lewis, he also has a bunch of other fictional books that he's written. I looked some up and I started to find a bunch of different C.S. Lewis options that actually sound really interesting to me. But then I was kind of annoyed because I thought I was gonna have to make a whole nother trip back out to Barnes & Noble. And then I remembered something. I was pretty sure that my sister has a lot of old C.S. Lewis books, and so I tiptoed over into her dark little room and found a shelf full of a bunch of different Christian books and a few from C.S. Lewis. I ended up picking the Screw Tape Letters. This one seemed pretty interesting when I looked it up, and I just slipped it off her shelf and brought it into my room. She probably won't even notice. And so now I have it and I'm really excited to start this book. I had really high hopes for this book, so I started it right away, and at the same time I was finishing up 3 Missing Days, and yes, still didn't realize that it was part of a series. But even though that book seemed to keep getting worse for me, the Screw Tape Letters started off really strong. So the first and main good sign I'm seeing about this book is that it is going by so quickly, and it's not just because it's a pretty short book. Like, I can tell I'm just genuinely enjoying it a lot more. So the whole idea of this book is just so unique to me. It's basically a bunch of letters from one demon essentially to another, which sounds kind of creepy, but it's actually so interesting. Something that just makes, I feel like, C.S. Lewis's Christian fiction writing to me so much better is that there's no awkward Christian topic like moments, because the entire book is just all one big metaphor for like Christianity in general. Also, I feel like I'm learning so much from it as well. I think my favorite part thus far is just how unique it is, and I also just love C.S. Lewis's writing. It reminds me of the Chronicles of Narnia, so I'm really enjoying this book so far. I think I'm probably gonna be able to finish it today, and then we'll see if it ends up being a 5-star. 3 Missing Days is finished now, but one thing that I almost didn't even want to say that I discovered as I finished it yesterday is I just sound like so stupid. Basically, when I finished the book, I read over the acknowledgements at the very end, and I hear this line: "Dear reader, you've stayed with me throughout this whole series. And then I was like so confused. I start looking at the book again. I don't see anything on the cover that says anything about this being the 3rd book in a series, but then on the back of the book, a thing that says also in the Pelican Harbor series, and there's 2 other books. So I was just really annoyed with myself because that makes so much more sense. I looked it up more, and I think, from what I can tell, it's one of those things where it's like a series, but each book is kind of like its own thing, its own story, which I think is why I was able to read this without noticing it was a part of a series. But that does explain why there were so many characters in the beginning that I had a hard time keeping up with. It's probably because they were all introduced in previous books. So that might also contribute to why I'm not gonna rate this one as highly. I did end up giving it a 3 stars on Goodreads. I've completed the Screw Tape Letters. This book was so good. Again, just like so unique, like nothing I've ever read before. And I think really that's what I've been looking for this entire time, just something that's different. This one, I'm officially gonna rate 5 stars, which means I did it. I actually did it pretty quickly, only in 3 books. Even though this video's ending, I'm gonna continue to read Christian fiction books and keep searching for really good ones. This is a genre I care a lot about and I really want it to start getting bigger. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna read a bunch more C.S. Lewis.